I moved into that house at the end of October. Bad timing, I know, cold nights, shorter days, and that creeping sense of loneliness that sneaks in when the sun vanishes by 5. But the place was cheap, and I needed a reset after the breakup. My ex, Jamie, took the apartment and the friends. I got the old boxes, a dwindling savings account, and a beat-up Toyota. The house sat on the edge of a quiet, dead-end road, half-eaten by woods. It wasn't in terrible shape, just worn out. 1 story, 2 bedrooms, a porch that groaned under my weight, and a row of 6 tall windows in the living room facing the backyard. That's where I first saw him. I didn't see his face, not then. Just a figure. It was the second night. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV flickering low. Around 2 a.m., I jolted awake. My heart was pounding, like I'd heard something, but I couldn't remember what. I sat up, rubbing my face, and looked toward the windows. That's when I saw it, him. A silhouette standing just past the tree line. Perfectly still. The kind of still that makes you instinctively hold your breath, like you're not supposed to move either. He wasn't close. 30, maybe 40 feet away. Just standing there, half swallowed by shadow. I blinked. Rubbed my eyes. When I looked again, he was gone. I told myself it was a tree. Or my imagination. I'd barely slept the night before and had been running on coffee and anxiety. But the next night, I couldn't fall asleep on the couch. I locked the windows, drew the curtains, and kept the lights on like a goddamn coward. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about that figure. About how real he looked. Like he was watching. The next morning, I told myself I wouldn't mention it to anyone. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Hell, I didn't even know anyone in this new town. Besides, if you've ever lived alone in a place that creaks and settles, you know how your brain turns every noise into a threat. Still, that day, I walked out to the backyard. The grass was long and wet, heavy with morning dew, and my shoes soaked through in seconds. I paced back and forth where I thought I saw him. Nothing. Just trees, some deer tracks, and a busted old shed that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. I didn't go near the shed. Not yet. That night, the scratching started. It wasn't loud. It wasn't constant. But around 1:40 in the morning, I heard this faint, dragging scrape coming from the living room windows. Like something dull being drawn across the glass. Not nails, more like a stick, or the edge of a coin. Skrrt. Pause. Skrrt. I froze in bed. I didn't move for a solid minute, just listening, heart pounding in my throat. I was telling myself, again, that it had to be the wind. Or maybe a branch. Maybe a raccoon. But my windows didn't have trees close enough to brush them. And I didn't hear the sounds of an animal scuttling. Just that, dragging. I crept out of bed and down the hallway. I didn't turn the lights on. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I stayed in the dark, whatever it was wouldn't see me. I got to the corner and peeked into the living room. Nothing. Curtains still drawn. No movement. But when I pulled them back, just a little, I saw something that made my stomach twist. A smear. A single greasy streak across the outside of the window. Like a finger had slowly trailed across the glass. I just stood there, staring at that greasy mark like it was going to rearrange itself into something that made sense. It hadn't been there earlier. I would have noticed. I'd triple-checked those windows before bed. I even remember pressing my palm against the glass to make sure the locks were snug. That mark wasn't mine. It wasn't long, just a faint arc, maybe 7 or 8 inches. It curved upward near the end, like a lazy crescent. And here's the thing that really got under my skin, the streak wasn't centered. It started low, like someone had been crouching, or kneeling, right outside, and touching the window. I didn't open the curtains the rest of the way. I couldn't. Something about the way the air felt in that moment, too still, too heavy, made me feel like if I looked out fully, he'd be there. Standing right against the glass. I was suddenly, absolutely sure of it. So I backed away. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat in my kitchen with a mug of black coffee, lights on, listening for any sign of movement outside. Around 3:30, I heard a soft rustling from the trees. Not footsteps. Not an animal. Just a shift. Like something, or someone, was leaving. When the sun came up, I finally went back to the window. I expected the mark to be gone, like maybe I'd imagined it in the dark. But it was still there. Clear as day. That's when I noticed something even worse. Next to the streak, just to the right of it, there were faint smudges. Almost like knuckles. 4 of them. In a row. As if a hand had rested flat against the window, then pulled away slowly. I tried not to panic. I told myself maybe a kid was messing with me. Halloween had just passed. Maybe some leftover prankster was out creeping around. But there were no footprints. No candy wrappers. Nothing. I wiped the mark away with a towel and told myself it was over. I bought motion sensor lights that day. 2 of them. One for the backyard, one for the porch. I even grabbed a cheap indoor camera on sale. The kind that connects to your phone. It wasn't fancy, but it had night vision and a motion alert. That night, I locked every door and window, double-checked the camera angle, and tried to calm down. At 2:12 a.m. my phone buzzed. Motion detected, living room camera. My heart jumped straight into my throat. I tapped the alert with a shaky thumb and pulled up the live feed. The lights were off in the living room. The night vision kicked in. Gray tones and grainy shadows. Everything looked normal. Couch, coffee table, curtains drawn tight. But for just a second, less than a second, I saw the curtain ripple. Not dramatically. Just a soft flutter near the bottom, like something, or someone, had brushed against it from the other side. And then the feed froze. Just cut out. No error, no disconnection. The app just went dark like someone had yanked the plug. I didn't go into the living room that night. I stayed in my bedroom, back against the wall, holding a hammer I'd found in the kitchen drawer. And I kept staring at the camera feed, refreshing it over and over. It didn't come back online until just after sunrise. After that night, I seriously considered leaving. I even packed a duffel bag, just in case I had to bolt. But part of me, the stubborn, stupid part, refused to let some faceless weirdo chase me out of the one place I could afford. Besides, I thought, if he really wanted to get in, he would have by now. Still, I started sleeping in shifts. 3 hours on, a couple hours up, rinse and repeat. I moved the camera to face the window directly, added another cheap one by the back door, and even started leaving a light on in the hallway. The next 2 nights were quiet. No alerts. No scratching. I began to think maybe it was just a kid screwing around. Maybe the cameras had scared him off. Then came the 3rd night. 1:56 a.m. Motion alert. I was already half awake. I sat up, grabbed my phone, and pulled up the live feed. At first, I didn't see anything. Then the image adjusted, fuzzy gray to clearer black and white, and I noticed a shape just beyond the window. Not a full figure. Just the curve of a shoulder. A partial silhouette, like someone standing just out of frame. But what really stopped my breath was the outline of the jacket. Dark. Padded. A distinctive square patch on the upper sleeve. I knew that jacket. It was mine. I hadn't seen it in weeks. I thought I'd left it at my ex's place during the move. But there it was, on this figure, just standing outside my window. My stomach dropped as 100 thoughts slammed through me. Could Jamie be messing with me? Some weird revenge prank? No, she hated creepy stuff. This wasn't her style. Then I remembered something worse. That jacket, it had been packed in one of the missing boxes. I'd noticed 2 boxes were gone during the move. I assumed the movers had lost them. I even called the company, but they had no record. I'd written it off. Now I wasn't so sure. I got up, against every better instinct I had, and crept to the living room. The curtain still hung shut, the fabric unmoving. I reached for it slowly. Pulled it back. No one was there. I checked the backyard. Nothing. But the camera feed had seen him. I went to the shed the next morning. I hadn't touched it since I moved in. It was padlocked when I arrived, and I didn't have the key. But something told me to look. The lock was gone. Just gone. Not broken, not cut, just not there. The chain hung loose, and swaying slightly in the wind. Inside were my 2 missing boxes. Open. Half emptied. And a sleeping bag. Someone had been living there. But here's where it turns again. Taped to the inside wall of the shed was a photo. It was a printed still frame from my living room camera. And in the center of the image, blurry, but unmistakable, was me. Asleep on the couch. Taken from inside the house. I didn't move at first. My brain just kind of stopped. Like someone had pulled the plug on my thoughts. I just stood there, in that damp shed, staring at the photo taped to the wall like it was some kind of twisted trophy. The photo was grainy, printed on standard paper, the kind that curls at the edges after a day in the open. But it was me, curled up on the couch, blanket wrapped around my legs, mouth slightly open. The timestamp in the corner read 2:14 a.m. Same night the camera glitched. Which means, whoever took this was inside the house. At that realization, my body finally unfroze. I stumbled back out of the shed like it was on fire, hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped my phone. I ran back to the house, locked the door behind me, and checked every closet, every crawl space, even under the damn sink. Nothing. No one. But then I noticed something else. In the hallway, near the living room, I saw these faint depressions in the carpet. Just 2 side by side. Like someone had stood there barefoot. The prints weren't fresh, they'd puffed back up a bit, but they hadn't been there the day before. I vacuumed just that morning, trying to keep my mind off things. That meant someone had been inside. Again. I called the police. Not out of faith they'd find anything, I just needed someone to witness what I'd seen. Needed it to be real outside my own head. A cruiser showed up 20 minutes later. Officer Ramirez. Older guy, mustache, tired eyes. I walked him through everything, the window, the smear, the camera glitch, the shed, the photo. He listened politely, took notes. Even walked through the shed with gloves on, though he didn't touch much. You live alone? He asked. Yeah. You changed the locks when you moved in? That question chilled me more than anything else. Because no, I hadn't. I'd meant to. I'd even said I would, told my landlord I'd pick up new deadbolts, but it slipped through the cracks in the chaos of the move. Ramirez nodded like that told him everything. We'll dust the photo in boxes, he said. Check for prints. But if I'm honest with you, this feels like someone knew the house. Someone with access. Maybe even a spare key. You think it's the old tenant? I asked. He shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time. That night I didn't sleep. I changed the locks right after Ramirez left. Even wedged a chair under the doorknob like I was in a cheap motel. But I kept thinking about what he said, someone who knew the house. That didn't just mean a tenant. It could mean someone who'd been inside before I moved in. At 3:07 a.m., the hallway camera caught something. Not movement. Sound. It has a mic. It's not great, but clear enough. I reviewed the audio the next morning. Scrubbed back and forth a dozen times. It was faint. Soft. But once I isolated it, I couldn't stop hearing it. 6 footsteps. Slow. Soft. Then, a whisper. Just a single word. Wait. That's it. Wait. I didn't play the clip again. I couldn't. I deleted it. I told myself it was a glitch, a trick of sound, maybe the pipes, maybe my own voice caught in a loop. But I knew better. And deep down, something told me this wasn't about a stalker. This was something else. Something that had been here before I was. Something that wasn't waiting for me. It was waiting for someone to come back. I spent the next 2 days in a haze. Couldn't sleep more than an hour at a time. Every sound in the house turned into a potential threat, pipes knocking, wind in the eaves, the fridge motor kicking on. All of it made my skin crawl. But the worst was the silence. The complete, suffocating stillness that would settle over the house around 3 a.m. Like everything, even the bugs, knew to shut up. That kind of silence makes you listen whether you want to or not. And that whisper, "Wait," kept replaying in my head, even though I'd deleted the clip. The voice wasn't mine. It didn't sound fully human either. There was something flat about it, like it came from too far away. Or too close. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I started digging. Not outside, not literally, not yet. I started digging through records. County property archives, news clippings, forums. I wanted to know who lived here before me. My landlord hadn't said much, just that the last tenant left town suddenly. Vague. Ominous. I found a name eventually, Nathan Clary. Rented the house for 6 years. Quiet guy, worked from home, no family nearby. No forwarding address. But there was something weird in the rental history. Someone had filed a missing persons report on him last year. A friend who hadn't heard from him in weeks. The report was withdrawn days later though. Apparently Nathan called in and said he was fine. Only, that didn't sit right with me. I reached out to the guy who filed the report. Took me hours to track him down. He lived 3 states over. But I sent him a message, just in case. Didn't expect to hear back. But he did respond. And his message was short as hell. He never called. They told me he did, but I know his voice. That wasn't him. That rattled me. Bad. I went through the house again, searching for anything I missed. I crawled up into the attic, nothing but insulation and dust. Checked behind the water heater, inside vents, even pried open the bathroom cabinet backing. Still nothing. Then I noticed the floor. In the living room, beneath the couch, the hardwood slats were slightly uneven. Not warped, just not sitting flush. And when I stepped on the spot, it gave a little. I got a screwdriver and started working. Took 20 minutes of prying, sweating, and sheer paranoia, but eventually, I lifted one of the boards clean off. Beneath it, wrapped in stiff, clear plastic, was a stack of photographs. Printed. Old school. Dozens of them. Every single one taken from inside the house. Different tenants. Different eras. All asleep. Eating. Reading. Living. None of them noticed the camera. Except one. In the very last photo, a man, early 40s, dark beard, hunched at the kitchen table, was staring straight into the lens. Eyes wide. Mouth slightly open. Like he'd just seen whoever was holding the camera. I flipped the photo over. A name was written on the back in red ink. Nathan Clary, saw me. There were scratch marks on the wall behind him. Faint in the photo, but when I looked at my own kitchen wall, they were still there. Covered in paint, but the grooves were real. Claw-like. Like he tried to get out. I should have left. Right then, I should have packed a bag, walked out, and never looked back. But I didn't. Because taped to the bottom of the box, hidden behind the photos, was a key. Old brass, tarnished, teeth worn nearly smooth. And tied to it with twine, was a folded slip of paper. 5 words, all lowercase. Don't let it find you. That key changed everything. I couldn't stop turning it over in my hand. It felt ancient, like it had belonged to someone long dead. There was something oily about it, too. Not sticky, not wet, just wrong. Like the metal remembered being touched. It left a faint gray smear on my fingertips no matter how many times I wiped it on my jeans. I tried it on every door in the house. It didn't fit the front. Not the back. Not the shed. Nothing. But something in me knew it belonged somewhere in the house. Somewhere hidden. So I went room by room again. Tapping the walls, checking under rugs, pulling drawers all the way out and feeling for false backs. I nearly missed the latch. It was in the hallway closet. Way in the back, behind the water heater, hidden behind a board that looked part of the wall. A tiny notch of metal, barely sticking out. I tugged it. The wall panel clicked and swung inward. Behind it was a narrow opening. A crawl space, maybe 4 feet high, 8 feet deep. The kind of place you wouldn't see unless you knew it was there. And it was cold. Not basement cold. Dead air cold. Like it hadn't been touched in years. The smell hit me next. Not rot. Not mildew. Something drier. Staler. Like paper and dust and old breath. I held my phone up for light and crawled in. At first, all I saw were piles of junk. Old cans. Broken picture frames. A cracked ceramic doll missing its face. But near the back, I saw a small door. Wooden. Heavy. And locked. The key slid in smooth. When it clicked open, my ears popped, like I'd gone up a mountain too fast. Inside the door was a compartment. No bigger than a suitcase. And inside that was something I still can't fully explain. Not at once. First, notebooks. Stacks of them, wrapped in twine. Each labeled with a date. The earliest was from 1981. The last one? 2 weeks ago. Second, a recorder. An old-school, handheld tape recorder. There was a cassette inside. I hit play, and at first all I heard was static. Then, slowly, the faint sound of breathing. Shallow, rapid. Then a voice. If you're hearing this, then it's still inside the walls. The breathing continued. Faster now. Panicked. It doesn't come every night. Just when you notice it. When you name it. That's when it gets in. Through the windows. The pipes. The places you don't clean enough. Don't call it a person. It isn't. Then silence. The tape ran out with a soft click. I sat there for a long time. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. And that's when I realized I could hear it too. Not the thing from the recording. Something else. The sound of movement in the vents. Something dragging. Slow. Deliberate. Like knees on metal. I backed out of the crawl space so fast I smacked my head on the frame. Didn't even close the panel behind me. I just ran to the kitchen and locked the door, even though that wouldn't have helped a damn bit. I tried calling Ramirez, the cop. No answer. Then I remembered something else, the motion alerts. I pulled up my phone and scrolled through the feed. And there it was. 2 hours earlier, 2:08 a.m., just before I'd gone into the closet. The camera in the hallway had picked up movement. But not outside. From the attic entrance. You can see it, plain as day. The square of the ceiling panel nudging slightly, just barely. And then a hand, pale, long fingers, dirty fingernails, slowly reaching down. Just hanging there. Not climbing down. Just watching. Then it slid back up, out of frame. I didn't hear it. Didn't see it. But it had been there. Above me. Listening. Waiting. I didn't sleep. Again. I kept the kitchen light on, back against the fridge, hammer in my lap. Same position I'd taken the first week, only now I knew something had been inside. Not suspected, knew. The shape in the hallway camera was real. The breathing on the tape was real. The photo of me asleep? Real. But what chilled me the most was that hand. Not just how it looked, wrong proportions, too thin, too long, but the way it hung there. Like it wasn't reaching for anything. Just hovering. Watching. Waiting. Like it didn't want me. Like it wanted me to see it. And worse, like it knew I had. Around 5:30 a.m., the light in the kitchen flickered. Just once. Then again. And then it died completely. The bulb didn't pop. No hum. No warning. Just darkness. I tried the switch. Nothing. Checked the fuse box. Still fine. The hallway light was out too. And then my phone buzzed. No service. That's when it hit me. I wasn't alone. The house felt different. Heavier. Like something had stepped into it, not physically, but like when someone walks into a room and the air shifts. Except I hadn't heard a single door. The crawl space panel was still open. The air leaking from it was colder now, almost wet. The kind of damp that sinks into your bones. And there was a sound. Not loud. Not right away. It started as a soft vibration. Like someone whispering directly into drywall. A fast, rhythmic clicking. Like teeth. Coming from inside the walls. I backed into the living room. The camera lights were off. The windows, every single one, were fogged up on the inside. And I swear to you, behind one of them, I could make out a faint smear slowly tracing across the glass. I remembered the note. Don't let it find you. So I grabbed the notebooks from the crawlspace, the ones I hadn't opened yet, and flipped through them one by one. Names, sketches, notes written in all caps, crossed out, rewritten. Some pages were just the same words scribbled over and over. But one entry stuck with me. Written in a different hand than the others, neater, more methodical. It was labeled, Rules of the House. Don't leave mirrors uncovered after dark. Don't sleep near a window. Don't speak to it. Don't pretend you didn't see it. Don't try to record its voice. Don't say its name, even if it gives you one. That last line had been underlined 3 times. Below the rules, someone had scrawled a question. But what if it says mine is your name? I didn't know what that meant then. But I would soon. I stayed up all day, afraid to sleep. I turned on every battery-powered light I had, even candles. The second the sun went down, the smell came back, that dry, metallic breath smell that filled the air like dust from under a locked door. And then the whispers started again. Not from a vent. Not from the window. From inside the closet. I stood there, maybe 10 feet away, hammer raised. The whisper came again, clearer now. It said my name. Not once. But 3 times. Soft. Careful. Like it was trying it on. Like it liked the way it sounded. Sam. And then, just beneath the whisper, something else. A second voice. Thinner. Hungrier. Repeating a phrase, again and again. You let it in. I should have run. But my legs didn't move. Because deep down, I knew something I hadn't wanted to admit. This thing didn't break in. It was never about windows or locks. It was about attention. About noticing. It had always been here. In the quiet corners. Behind the walls. Just waiting for someone to look too long. And I had. I didn't sleep. I don't think I even blinked after hearing my name whispered from that closet. I kept staring at the door. It didn't move. Nothing opened. Nothing reached out. But I could feel the weight of something behind it. Like a presence pressing against the inside of the wood. Still, it never opened. At 4:13 a.m., something changed. All at once, the air went completely still. Like the world outside had stopped spinning. There were no bugs. No wind. Not even the creak of the house settling. Just dead silence. And then, every window in the house fogged up at the same time. Not a slow creep, but a snap, like the house had inhaled through its skin. I backed away, phone gripped so tight I nearly cracked the screen. I opened the camera app out of instinct, and that's when I saw something that didn't make any sense. The living room camera feed was back online. It had been dead since the hand appeared in the attic. Now it was working. Smooth. Clear. But it wasn't showing the living room. It was showing a room I'd never seen before. A small square space. No windows. Bare concrete floor. A single wooden chair in the center. The walls were covered in gouges and scratches, as if someone had spent years trying to claw their way out. There were symbols carved into the concrete. Shapes that hurt my eyes to look at. Crooked circles. Teeth. Spirals that didn't connect. And the worst part? The feed was live. The timestamp matched exactly. I turned in a slow circle, trying to figure out where the hell this room was, but it didn't fit the layout of my house. There was no door that led to it. No stairwell. No trapdoor. It was nowhere. And yet, the light in that room was on. Flickering. Pale and yellow like a dying bulb. Then, on the screen, a figure entered the room. Slowly. Hesitantly. It was a man. Maybe late 30s. Bearded. Disoriented. He looked around, panicked. Approached the camera. His mouth was moving, but there was no sound. It was Nathan Clary. I was sure of it. He reached for the camera, then recoiled like it burned him. And that's when I saw the other figure. Standing in the far corner. Motionless. Barely visible. Tall. Too tall. Its face was wrong. Not masked. Not monstrous. Just unfinished. Like someone had started carving a face from wax and gave up halfway. Then, Nathan turned and ran. Straight at the camera. The moment he got within inches, the screen cut to black. No error. No disconnection. Just black. And then, a new feed loaded. It was my kitchen. Live. Real time. Same lighting. Same camera angle. And in the corner, just at the edge of the frame, I saw something shift. Bare feet. Long legs. Slowly stepping into view. It was the same figure. From the concrete room. Except now it was in my house. And then it spoke. Not on the video. In the kitchen. Right next to me. Now you know. I turned, swinging the hammer with everything I had. It hit nothing. Just air. But the voice stayed. Soft. Right behind my ear. Like breath crawling down the back of my neck. You named me. I ran. Didn't grab my bag. Didn't grab shoes. Just bolted. Out the front door, into the dark, barefoot down the road like a man escaping a fire. Didn't stop running until I hit a gas station 2 miles away, bleeding and shaking. I told the clerk someone broke in. He called the cops. But when they checked the house, no signs of forced entry. No crawl space. No hidden room. No shed. Just a house. Clean. Quiet. Normal. They said maybe I had a breakdown. That stress can make people see things. That I'd probably fallen asleep and dreamed it. But they didn't explain the last thing. The thing that still keeps me up. Because before I left that house, before I ran, I turned and looked back one last time. And in the fogged-over window of my living room was a single word, drawn by a finger. In neat, careful letters. Stay. It's been 6 months since I left that house. Since I ran barefoot into the night like a wild animal escaping something it couldn't name. I wish I could tell you the nightmares faded. They didn't. I moved 2 states away. Got a studio apartment in a building with floodlights, neighbors on every wall, and no crawl spaces. I sleep with the TV on, every damn night. Haven't drawn a curtain since. But there are things that don't care where you go. Because it wasn't about that house. It was never about the location. It was about attention. About seeing it. The man at the window. That's not really what it is. That's just how it shows up at first, at a distance. A shape. A silhouette. Something you aren't sure you saw. That's what it wants. For you to doubt. To look again. To notice it more clearly. Once you do, that's when it steps closer. Not in the physical way. No, you bring it with you. Like a splinter in your mind. Like a name you can't forget. Like an infection of attention. And I know now, I named it. I don't mean I said its actual name. I still don't know it, not really. But I gave it shape. I told a cop. I wrote things down. I looked for it on camera. That's what it needs. Recognition. I've stopped telling people what happened. Because when I do, when I start to describe it, that foggy pressure starts to fill the room again. The light in the bathroom flickers. My phone battery drains. The shadows start to stretch. I tried burning the notebooks. They didn't burn. I buried them instead, in a wooded area 15 miles out, beneath a stone slab. I didn't mark it. I didn't want to be able to find it again. But I think it doesn't matter. Last week, my neighbor asked me something weird. A woman 2 doors down. Sweet older lady, keeps to herself mostly. She said, I saw someone standing in your window the other night. You have company? I told her no. That I live alone. She paused. He was tall, she said. Didn't look like he belonged. That night, I stayed awake, phone clutched in both hands, watching my dark window. And just before 3 a.m. I saw it. The faintest outline. Not in the glass. In the reflection of the TV. Just a blur. A figure. Standing behind me. Waiting. And you? You're thinking about it now, aren't you? You're picturing the smear on the glass. You're wondering what you'd do if you heard someone whisper your name from behind a closed door. You're checking your mirrors. Your windows. Your crawlspace if you have one. That's how it starts. Not with a knock. Not with a scream. With attention. With noticing. So if tonight your phone buzzes at 2:14 a.m. If your window fogs over from the inside. If you hear your name in a voice that sounds almost right, but not quite. Don't speak. Don't look too long. Don't name it. Because now it knows you know. And it's waiting for the moment you give it shape.